Welcome to Salcedo Paranormal. It is Tuesday, March 28th, 2023, at least here on the East Coast, and today is a special Listener Experiences episode. As always, you can find all episodes of the show, along with links to social media and other ways to contact me at the podcast page, and that is salcedoparanormal.podbean.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.podbean.com. Always happy to hear from you all, whether you have comments or questions or topic suggestions or stories of paranormal experiences, whether they're your own or from others that you trust. Happy to either read those or have you join me on the show to talk about them. Also, if you would like to support the show, there are a few ways to do that. You can always share the show with others that you think may be interested in it. Also, if you check out the pinned post in this Discord channel and or check out the episode description, you'll always find links to my Amazon page for my books that I've written, both fiction and nonfiction on the paranormal, and as well as links to ways to donate to the show, as there are expenses, and any little bit would help and would be greatly appreciated. So the plan for the rest of this week is tomorrow I'll cover paranormal news since I didn't get to cover it yesterday, and I'll be doing my first mythology show, which is another show I didn't get to do when I wanted to, on basically Thursday morning. And of course, a reminder, Saturday's show will be at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. And that will be, starting on that day, that will be the new show time, except for in special circumstances for guest appearances. Those are always subject to be changed. The time can be changed for those because it takes a lot sometimes to find just the right time for everyone to be on the show whenever they can make it. So I like to be as flexible as possible for all those people. So that's the plans for the rest of this week, and then of course starting the new schedule this weekend. And I believe that covers everything. So, and again, this is a listener experiences show. This is actually the second part of a show that was done a little while back, and that's because I would like to now welcome Matsowl onto the show again. Hello, Matt.
Hello, James. How are you today?
Okay, thank you for joining me again.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me on. This is a really good show. I'm a big fan, and thank you for having me here.
No problem. Thank you for being here as often as you are to listen, and looking forward to having you on a roundtable show as well. Looking at May, I think. We'll see. But yeah, so no, it's been great, and always enjoy talking with you and hearing you. Of course, I met you through Troubled Minds Radio, and looking forward to. So yeah, I always look forward to hearing you on that show when you call in as well. And yeah, so of course, this is about paranormal experiences here. So wherever you want to start with that, go ahead and take it from there.
Yeah, I want to come on and tell my stories, and I think what you're doing here, telling people stories on the internet, is I like what you're doing, because a lot of people, and myself included, don't like to tell these stories, random stories, to strangers, for fear of being ridiculed or called crazy. And I think I want to hear other people's stories. So if I know there's people out there like me that are too afraid to tell their stories, and I just want people to know, I want to hear your stories. I want to hear these stories and judge for myself what I think, if they're real or not. And the goal here is to get enough people, if all of us can share our stories, people that have had experiences can share their stories. People can maybe take it seriously, and if you believe in the afterlife, it's kind of makes you feel like there's something more out there, more than this life, and just to be good, be good to one another. And my goal is that hopefully one day, the scientific community will take it seriously, and enough people tell their stories, and maybe one day science can prove or explain this afterlife, and it'd be a good day for the people that have these stories. I told you so. So that's kind of my goal, is that to I always joke around, but joking aside, these stories are serious. They're my stories. They're my personal experiences, and I would like to share some of them. So my first stories start off when I was a kid at a friend's house, and I'm not going to say that friend's name for privacy issues.
Of course.
But at a friend's house, the friend, when he moved into this house, him and his family had experienced seeing his deceased grandmother. Everyone had these different experiences, and to them, they were a Christian family, and they didn't like to talk about it. They wanted to hide it. They didn't want people to think they're crazy, so they hid it, and they, out of sight, out of mind, ignored it. And as a kid, I didn't understand, but now as an adult, I'm kind of getting the feeling that people feel if they give energy to it or acknowledge it, just thinking about it adds, like, fuels it and gives it energy. So they didn't want to talk about it because they wanted to just ignore it. And so a couple things here, factors. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no, I wasn't saying anything, but it's I've heard that idea before, that point of view before, and I think that in some cases that is possible. But I think also in other cases I've heard plenty of stories where the more you ignore things, the more activity can happen. So I think it really can. You have to go sort of a case by case basis there with that. But yeah, sorry if there was a sound there, but nope, I'm just listening.
Oh yeah, anytime you want to jump in or ask questions if I'm going too fast, let me know.
No problem.
So a couple things here. I think sometimes these hauntings, there's layers to them. Maybe not all one thing, a whole bunch of things. So a couple factors here I like to just add to it is, the first, his family, they had a lot of pets. They had a lot of animals. They're animal lovers. And we had dogs and cats and chickens and goats and exotic birds, lizards, all kinds of animals. And the animals, unfortunately, don't live as long as humans. And over the years, the animals would grow old. We didn't have a vet in our town, and the dad would just go out and put the animal out of its misery and would bury it in the backyard in a box. And so over time, we had this corner of his yard was just, we put sticks in the ground to mark where the animal was buried. And I didn't really know about death. I was a little kid, so that was my first kind of, what is this? What is death? And the other factor is that when we would dig the holes to bury the animals, we were finding Native American arrowheads. And I have a jar of these Native American arrowheads that I found from the Padwin Indians that were here. And so two things, I don't want to say this is the reason that caused the hauntings, but I feel, these are kind of, maybe there's layers, there's a whole bunch of things going on. I really feel that it was the land itself was haunted, not just the house. Because we had neighbors later on, say they had paranormal experiences too. So I think that it's the land itself is haunted. It doesn't matter what structure was built on top. So I think there's layers, residual energies, and also like traumas and other things that happen here and then also the pet cemetery kind of adds like a energy vortex of some sort that maybe the ghosts are drawn to. So we hear those stories. Anything on that?
Yeah, I do believe you're right about that. I mean, I'm sure we've all heard many stories where there were these weird things that happened in this new house or in this store or building or school or whatever, and it turns out later on you find out that maybe that was where people way back, hundreds of years ago, or even just several decades ago, 100 years ago, but even further back than that, they lived there, and it doesn't always have to be. I don't think it has to be even. They don't always have to necessarily be buried there, but if people live there long enough and far back enough, I think that can still leave energy, and especially the arrowheads. That's stone. And we know stones can have energy, electromagnetic magnetic energy to them. So yeah, and then of course the animals definitely. That's a whole lot of energy that is put into one section of a yard. That's the thought I hadn't considered before. That's something maybe to look into, and that's definitely seems like it's possible.
Yeah. So the house is very active, and one of my first stories, I was about 9 or 10 years old, and his parents in their room they had a waterbed, and so we'd sneak off and jump on the waterbed, and they had this closet. It's a classic monster in the closet story, where this closet felt like there was something, like there was a presence or a feeling of being watched. And different occasions, this happened where his dogs would bark at the wall and bark at nothing.
Mm.
And we didn't know what it was, but when the dogs bark at the wall in the closet, we would see this movement, and I would describe it as a shadow figure, a shadow man, a head, a torso, arms. And the weird thing was that this being, when it wasn't, if it was standing still, I couldn't see it. But when it moved, I would see its silhouette against the darkness of the closet. And it was darker than the darkness of the closet. And of course, I freaked out. And when that happened, of course, my friend said, "Oh, it's nothing. That happens. Ignore it." And we would go to another room and play. And that's, I remember being a little kid, and that scared me because I didn't know what it was. And it definitely didn't feel, it felt malevolent, it felt like it was a bad spirit to me. I don't know, but it was definitely something in that closet moving. I don't know, I can't explain what it was. And also around that time, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just I was just adjusting the volume on the speakers, but that's yeah, I don't blame you. I mean, I think it's definitely important to trust how you're feeling, and so I don't blame you for being afraid of that. So, but yeah, go ahead.
And around that time, is in the 80s, early 90s, and we had this entertainment system, we'll call it. It was a cabinet about chest high, and it had a swinging glass door that opened and closed. And inside we had our record player and our VHS player, all the things stacked up on these shelves. And we'd have the door open, listening to records. And the dad would get mad when we had the door open. And when we have the door open, we were sitting on the floor, being kids, playing, coloring. And we'd see in the reflection of this, the window of the glass, see things moving in this down the hallway. People, boys and girls and women and children. And we'd see this movement and turn around. Of course, there was nothing there. And that was kind of a weird story for me. I think that one was more of, like I said, residual energy, like people that lived in the house before, and they're just on repeat walking up and down the hallway. And not only me, but several other people had seen this too throughout the years. That seen these movements in the reflection of the glass, and that one's kind of wild.
Yeah, yeah. Glass is an amazing thing with the paranormal because you do seem to get weird things that happen with it, whether it's an actual mirror or it's just glass, just windows. Plenty of stories of people seeing things in windows, images, whether it's a reflection or just looking up at a house and seeing something in the window and then it's gone. So, and yeah, I think hallways are probably a really good spot for like residual activity to happen in because people are always coming and going through them. So that could be something to that.
Yeah. So next story, I was about 13 years old, and I'm at my friend's house staying the night. And we're up staying up late, and there's a thunderstorm. Thunderstorm knocked out the power. So we got our flashlights, and we're going through the house, and we decided to go to bed. And he had a bunk bed. He got on the bottom bunk, and I got on the top bunk. And I remember I put my flashlight at the foot of my bed because just in case it was pitch black dark in there.
Mm-hmm.
And I put my flashlight there just in case I need to get up. And I'm laying there, I'm about to fall asleep. And all of a sudden, I hear this crying sound, weeping.
Mm.
And I think, my friend, why is he crying? So I look around and I look under my bed, lean off the bunk bed. I hear this crying, but I also hear my friend snoring, or he was breathing heavy. I hear this crying. I don't know where it's coming from in the room. So I sit up and I turn my flashlight on. I grab my flashlight, turn it on, and I shine it from left to right across the room. And my eyes have to adjust. When I shine it to the right of the room, I see a figure, a little boy, facing away from me in the corner of the room.
Wow.
And he has his arm cocked, his arm leaned up against the wall, and he's crying into his arm. He has his back to me. And I remember his clothes, it was a solid figure. Like there was a person there.
Right.
And I see his clothes were, I call period clothes, meaning not from this time period. They were wool. And of course, I freaked out, but I wanted to run away, but I couldn't. I froze. I didn't want to run past it because I would have to pass it. So I did what I did. I ignored it and I hid under the blankets.
Yeah.
Laid still. And I kind of prayed for it to go away. Eventually, the crying sound stopped and it went away. And I eventually fell asleep. And I never told anyone that story for years. Because that one is, if I told someone that, or hey, you're crazy, it didn't happen, right? So I never told anybody that story, and I held it in. And I remember I told my mom the next day, I don't want to stay the night there anymore. And I didn't for a long time. Now fast forward I was about 14, 15 at the time. And my friend, his parents were out of town. He wanted to have a party, invite some girls. So we invited some girls, and they invited some friends. And the friends were their first time there. One of these random girls asked my friend, "Where's the bathroom? We're up partying, you know." He asked, "Where's the bathroom?" She asked, "Where's the bathroom?" And my friends say, "Down the hall to the right." And she had to pass his bedroom to get there. So she leaves. A few minutes later, she comes back, kind of frantic, saying, "Your little brother needs your help. He's in the room crying."
Oh, wow.
And my friend, he goes, "Well, I don't have a little brother. We're the only ones here." And she said, "Yeah, there's a little boy in your room crying in the corner." And I heard this. I kind of perked up, and I had her tell me. I had her, show me where was this. She took me in the room, and she pointed to the exact corner that I had seen the little boy before. And that to me was like a confirmation. Like maybe maybe I'm not crazy. Maybe there is something going on here. And it was a
Yeah.
confirmation, and that's the story that really got me into this afterlife stuff. Excuse me. Go ahead for a second. I'll take a drink.
Yeah, that is amazing. That does seem like confirmation, and yeah, Derek, the Night Stalker, there agrees as well. So yeah, it's those kinds of sightings. I'm pretty sure I've told the story before in the show about what used to be my grandparents' house and the apparition that a handful of us saw there at different times, and how we got confirmation of that from the next door neighbors who had a picture of the person that we saw in their house, and it turned out it was the original owner of the house that became my grandparents' house, and it was the mother of one of the neighbors. So, and that kind of confirmation is just, it really is amazing when it happens.
Yeah. Yeah, good story. My next story is kind of long. Lots of synchronicities that happen over time.
Mm.
So I'll go try to go slow. So this story is about when I was about 14. I moved in. Me and my mom moved into a house, and we were excited. And moving day comes. We got a U-Haul and put all our stuff and moved across town. And when we got there, the house is on a corner, and we couldn't get to our house because there was firefighters and cops blocking the road. So we parked and we walked up closer and realized that the firefighters were putting out a house fire on a house across the street. And we waited, and they put the fire out, and they left. We were able to move in. Well, I didn't know at the time, but found out from neighbors later on that 2 elderly people had perished in the fire, had passed.
Mm.
It's a tragic story. I don't know the details, how or what happened, but I do know that 2 people died. And so that night, we moved in and had our TV set up in our living room. We're unpacking boxes. And my mom goes into her room to go to bed. And I'm staying up late watching TV. And I'm sitting on the couch, and I'm watching a show called David Letterman. I don't know if you remember old nighttime shows.
Yes, I
But
do, a little bit.
that's important to the story.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting on the couch by myself, and all of a sudden I hear this laughing coming. I can't figure out where it's coming from. I think, oh, it's the TV. I turn it down. I'm still hearing it. I think maybe it's someone outside messing with me. So I'm checking all my doors, closing all my windows. Nothing. Still keep hearing this laughing. So I sit down and I want to ignore it. And I realize, as I'm sitting there on the left side of my couch, I realize the laughing is coming right next to me, to my right.
Oh.
And I look down and I see in the couch an impression, like someone else is sitting there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm getting that feeling, that feeling of a presence, someone watching me. And when I see this impression in the couch, I freak out. I run to my mom's room, like, mom, a ghost. And I hide with her. And of course, you stayed up too late, you ate too much candy, or saw a scary movie. And so that I knew right away that house, maybe sometimes they say new house, new feelings and all that, but I knew right away that something was going on in that house. And I grew up in that house till I was about 19 years old. And we had stuff, and I don't like to say all this stuff is paranormal, but we had, doors open and close, TVs turn on and off, um, unexplained footsteps, unexplained noises, just that kind of stuff. I don't want to say all that stuff is 100% paranormal, because it could be the wind closing the doors or bad electricity. So we did have stuff like that. One of the things we had was a lot of times is things would disappear,
Mm.
and we would tear our house apart looking for it, and then days later it would reappear in like a normal spot, like right on the coffee table in front of us. And there was just weird kind of poltergeist stuff going on in that house. And let's see. So fast forward to when I'm about 18 years old. I was still a senior in high school, and we had this wraparound porch. And me and this girl I was dating were sitting on this front porch. Now the house across the street that had burned up was still there. It was a structure, was still there, and nature had kind of took it over. And homeless people would go in there. It was an eyesore.
Mm-hmm.
And one day, this construction worker pulls up. And he starts looking. He's in a city truck. And he's looking at the house. He sees us. He starts talking to us. Hey, what's going on with that house? I go, oh, it burned up the day I moved in years ago. Okay. A few days later, he shows up again. This time, there's a guy in a nice car and a suit. He gets out, and together they're looking at the property. And I overhear them talking about they want to tear the house down and build apartments on top of it. Okay, and I go, yeah, that'd be a great idea. It's an eyesore right now. It's not doing nothing. It's just a burned down house.
Right.
And then a couple days later, about a week later, I come home from school and I notice there's a fence and they're bulldozing the house. They're tearing it down. And it was cool. I watched it. I watched them tear this house down. It was cool. I was a kid. Entertainment. I
Yeah.
watched them tear the house down. And and then later, and there was that same night, the night that they started tearing down the house. That same night, I had the girl over, and we're watching scary movies. I'm about to make my move, and all of a sudden we hear some noises outside in our backyard, and we start hearing again crying, like a weeping sounds. So I go out with my flashlight and I'm looking outside. What was the sound? And she comes out and we both hear crying, disembodied crying sounds. We start looking around and she says, "Do you hear that? There's two people, a man and a woman crying."
Mm.
And I listen. Sure enough, there's a man voice and a woman voice crying. But we could not pinpoint where it was coming from. And I'm being dumb, I don't know. She goes, "Didn't you say that two people died in the fire? A man and a woman? A couple?" I say, "Yeah." and she called for a ride, and she never stayed the night again when we broke up. But that was kind of weird that happened like that. That she heard it too. And this goes to stories of people that remodel or when the house was being destroyed. I thought it was weird that on the day that their house was being torn down, we could hear two people crying. She put that together, and I never really thought about it like that. But there's stories of people remodeling or people doing construction even, and it stirs up the energy, stirs up the ghosts.
Yeah, definitely. And if you were there on the day, I mean, unfortunately, the day that they passed, and you're still there on the day where the place is getting torn down, it's like the conclusion of that whole series of events in a way, or at least the next major step. And now that place, I mean, it's never going to be the same. And it sounds like that couple was aware of that.
Yeah, and then the wild kind of synchronicity top it off when they did build apartments there, and the apartments had a fountain, and in the fountain had a lion statue. And I'm a Leo, so that was kind of a wild twist on synchronicity on that one.
Uh-huh.
But the story keeps going. And so the next part, about a little bit later, I had to move out of that house and move to the house I live in now. And my last day there, it was I had to be out on November 1st. And so the last day there was October 31st, Halloween. And I decided, be a smart idea, to have a party. Well, I'd already moved everything out of that house. And I was in the process of cleaning, and the house was empty. So my party was kind of lame because I had no furniture or anything. But I had a couple friends over and we partied, and then the night went on and the party died down and everybody left. Except for three of my friends, two coworkers and my friend's girlfriend. And we're in this empty house, and they're saying, yeah, it's kind of creepy in here. I say, yeah, this house is haunted. I didn't tell them any details of story or anything like that. And they sighed. They say, well, it's Halloween. Halloween. Things, the veil is thin, right?
Sure,
So
yeah.
things like Ouija boards work better.
Oh boy.
Oh boy, here we go. So disclaimer, Ouija boards are not toys, they're tools. But I was young and naive, and I didn't know. I didn't know about Ouija boards except what the movies had told me.
Right.
So I didn't know anything about them really. And so they get it out and they start it. And in my house, I'm in this empty house, sitting on the floor. And in my living room, I had a pillar, like a middle structure. And my back was sitting on the floor, my back against this pillar. And my friends get the Ouija board, and they're all. I was not pushing the planchette, and they're having these experiences, talking to people and past loved ones. And I'm sitting there thinking, oh, they're messing with me. And so it comes to my turn. They asked me, talk to the ghost of the house. So I connect with the ghost of the house. And I made sure that I wasn't pushing the planchette, but I wanted to ask questions I knew that they didn't know the answers to. So I started asking it. Was that you when I was here on my first day? It said yes. I asked it, what were you doing? And it spelled laugh, Laugh.
Ah.
Wow. I go, okay, and what was so funny? What were you laughing at? And the planchette, and I wasn't pushing it. The planchette went to DL, David Letterman.
Wow.
And I knew I wasn't pushing it, and I knew I didn't tell them that story. And so I was kind of freaking. I was done. I was like, nope.
Yeah.
So I stood up, and the friend, his girlfriend, started to do something I don't recommend. She started to provoke it. She started to ask, if you're real, if you're here, do something, show yourself, move something.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's a bad idea.
Yes.
And all of a sudden, the candles start flickering. Well, there's no wind. And I stand up, and I was in my living room, and from my living room to my kitchen, I had like a bar area that I could see into. And I noticed there's someone standing in my kitchen. Silhouette, couldn't see any details, just a black figure. This black figure's shadow had a hat, like an old timey hat, like an Indiana Jones hat.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh, someone showed up late to the party, or this is one of their friends, maybe messing with me. And so I call out, who's there? And my friends stand up and they see it too. And I do like a double take, turn and I turn back around, and it's gone. And my friends, again, not recommended, they blew out the candles, closed up the Ouija board, and took off, got in their car, and left. And we never talked about that story ever again. They didn't like talk about it. They were scared, and they left me there with the ghost by myself. And so I got scared. I left, and I came here to this house, and I had a really hard time sleeping because that was pretty scary experience. Now years go by, and that story, I really don't. Like I said, I didn't know much about Ouija boards, so I started to study them. Started to study what was it about, and I realized that this is when I found out that Ouija boards can have like a connection, like a phone call.
Right.
And on a Ouija board, there's a hello and a goodbye. And so the thing is, you establish the connection. You want to say goodbye at the end, and that didn't happen. They packed up the Ouija board and they left. And I always, in the back of my mind, I always kind of thought maybe we opened some portal and we didn't close it properly.
Yeah.
And I felt like, go ahead.
Just real quick, Derek wants to know, and this is a good question, if it was through a Ouija board, was it similar to the Hat Man, do you think?
Yes. Now, I didn't know about the Hat Man until years later after the story. But I also have had another encounter with this Hat Man later on in my life at my house now. A figure with a hat, like I say like an Indiana Jones hat. That's the only way I could really explain it, because it's just a silhouette,
Right.
and shadow, and no details. I couldn't tell if it was a man or a woman, even no details. But the figure was short. I noticed that short, like 5 foot maybe. What I was thinking is that figure in my kitchen that night was the old man of the two couple that died in the fire.
Okay.
But it was, yeah, I have heard the story of the Hat Man, and that's interesting to me. But I didn't know about that at that time.
Right.
Good question. I'm not able to look at my stream, the chat right now, so thank you for ask questions.
No problem. That's what I'm here for with these interviews, so no problem. But yeah, I was wondering if it was going to be, if what kind of sense you got from it, because I could see it being, I could have seen it being maybe the man from the couple that had passed, but also with the introduction of the Ouija board and not knowing any kind of procedures I could also see it having been someone completely different that was brought there by the board. So that's a
Yeah,
valid
I have no
question there.
idea.
Yeah.
But the story continues.
Yep.
So the next part of the story. Okay, so I moved out of that house and I moved here, and a few years later, every now and then I would run into my old neighbor of that house at the grocery store, and we would talk. We were kind of, we were cool with each other. We were neighbors for years. And one day I ran into her at the grocery store. She says, "Oh, that's kind of weird. What happened to your house, your old house?" I go, "Oh, I haven't been in that neighborhood in a long time. What happened?" She tells me, "Oh, it caught on fire and it burned up." I go,
Wow.
"Whoa, that's weird. What happened?" She say, "Oh, well, after you moved out, some squatters had moved in. Some homeless people had broken in and were living in there. And there was no heat, no electricity. So they decided one night they were cold and they decided to start like a bonfire inside the house to get warm. And the fire got out of hand and the fire caught the house on fire on the pillar in the middle of my living room, the same pillar that I was leaning up against when I was using the Ouija board. And it caught the house on fire. And the firefighters came and put the fire out. The house had burned up. And that kind of was what got me thinking. Well, we never closed the portal to that Ouija board. We never said goodbye. So we went there, and this is years after when I had already kind of studied Ouija boards and was kind of into it, being more careful. And me and Lacey went there, and we jumped the fence. We went to the burned down house and got kind of as close as we could to the living room. And we opened the Ouija board, and I say, "I'm not here. I don't live here anymore. But I want to close this portal. I want to close this connection." And we purposely pushed the planchette to goodbye. And when I did that, I felt this like kind of this stress relief. I felt maybe some like this like weight on my shoulders. That I had done something and that I wanted to go back and close it. And so I totally believe in that kind of stuff. So I feel by going back and going to goodbye, maybe stop that part of the hauntings. Anything on that?
Yeah, that is I believe that is definitely it makes sense that would happen that way and that would feel that way. And just putting that energy out there and then having that feeling of relief and of maybe the energy not coming through or going into that portal anymore as it's closed. That sort of makes sense that there wouldn't be that strain or that stress. Also, if you want to, you can. But if you want to mention who you're referring to, you mentioned Lacey. I don't know if you want to say that or not.
Oh, my wife. Sorry.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah, so that was years later. This is years later. We were dating at the time. All that kind of stuff was going on. But yeah, this is years later, and when we went back to close the portal, I was like in my mid-20s.
Okay.
So it was years after I moved out of the house, like 5 years after I moved out of the house.
Wow.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. That just comes from a lot of us talking with each other all the time, and not on live shows, and that's we all become friends, and so
Yeah.
no problem at all. I really wonder what else may have happened there during those years that you never even found out about because you weren't even there. You weren't there, and
Yeah.
if there was just other general activity that wasn't a fire, it makes me wonder if you were able to go back and talk to the people that were in that neighborhood over those years, what else you might find out about other possible activity there.
Yeah, they rebuilt the house. Now it's actually a way nicer house than it was. But it's a nice house. I think it might be a business actually now. But yeah, I'm always kind of curious to go by there and see if the owners would talk to me about it. It'd be kind of silly if there's anything still going on.
Yeah, I know that feeling. There's a couple places I'd love to go back to, houses that are not in the family anymore, that where I had a lot of things happen and where other people had things happen. And I would love to go back there, but it's it's just something you don't really. It's just too weird to do. Like, hi, I used to stay here or live here a lot there for a while, and just wondering, that's like maybe not the best thing to do.
Yeah. So that's most of my stories growing up. I do have one story I'll tell. More modern, more recent stories.
Mm-hmm.
Just one story. This story happened about 2019, right? It was summer, and we had these fires around here, wildfires,
Mm-hmm.
really bad smoke, and so we decided we wanted to get away from the smoke. So on a whim, we got off work on Friday, and we got a hotel at in Reno, in Nevada. And so we went up to our hotel. We got a hotel at Harris. It's a famous hotel out there.
Okay.
And we were on the 27th floor, up really high. And so we're sitting there and we're getting ready for the night. We're gonna go out. We're gonna go gambling and night on the town. And we're sitting there, and I'm looking out the window, and Lacey was in the bathroom. And all of a sudden, on this table, there's a table at a hotel. There's a ice bucket, and on top of the ice bucket is these plastic tongs. The plastic tongs you use to scoop the ice, I guess.
Right.
And it's about 4 feet in front of me. And all of a sudden, I feel like I'm being watched. And I look over. I see movement. I look over, and I see these ice tongs are just floating in the air, like 4 feet above the table. So I start to back up, and I react to it. And Lacey comes out. She sees it too.
Wow.
And these ice tongs float up, and they fly across the room into the middle of the room, and they bust into pieces. And the little pieces of plastic rain down on the ground. And we're freaking out. He's like, "We need a new hotel room." And I'm going, "This hotel room's haunted." And so I'm making jokes like, "Leave the TV on for the ghost." And I kind of believe. Oh, go ahead.
I'm just laughing because we have a mutual friend that's sort of an inside joke with a mutual friend of the show, who does the same thing at his house, intentionally, because when the TV's on, there's not as much activity, but when the TV's off, they don't seem to like that, and activity picks up. So yeah. I had to laugh at that because I do think that's a thing. It's also a thing in other stories I've read before and heard and shared before. So it seems like it's someone that's maybe has never had an experience. It may seem like a weird thing to do, but it does work sometimes.
Yeah, and the thing with hotels, I'm going somewhere with the story, but the thing with hotels, I think there's so much energy and so much things going on in hotels. And it might not just be the room; it might be the whole place.
Yes. Yeah.
What are walls to ghosts? So,
yes.
Anyways, we had that experience, and we were like, "That was weird. This hotel's haunted." And then the weird thing happened was we go out and we go out for the night in town. We come back, and it's like late at night, 3 in the morning, and we were out in the hallway of the hotel, smoking a cigarette, getting ready to go to bed, and the elevator kept opening and closing. There's no one around. There's no one there to trigger the. We were on the 27th floor, and there was no one around. The elevator kept opening and closing. And all of a sudden, I got a call from my friend, same friend, the house I was talking about, calling me to tell me that someone in his family had passed away on that same day. Someone that I was close with.
Oh.
And I putting two and two together. How does that work? Was this my friend showing me or telling me that he was in the afterlife, trying to get my attention? How does this work? I was so far away. I wasn't even in my hometown. But the fact that he died, and it was around that same time, about 6 p.m., that he died. But it was just so weird that I was having these weird paranormal experiences, not knowing that my friend had passed away. It's kind of a weird story, more of a modern one.
Yeah, that seems like. I mean, I could see that in a couple of ways. Either they were trying to contact you, and there was just so much energy that it's hard to say whether or not the ice tongs was like a direct thing that was meant to go to have that happen, or if it was just there was so much energy that was focused on you that it sort of levitated those things and made them, fly in that direction. The elevator thing too. I mean, that's very sort of, you could almost look at it as symbolic too. Just sort of ascending, from one form to another. Maybe, I don't know if that's stretching it or not, but
No,
yeah,
just
a lot of activity at the same time. I wouldn't be surprised, but it's also hard because, like you said, the hotel. I mean, it's yeah, I can see either way. I'm not saying that I doubt anything you're saying. I'm just saying I could see either way.
yeah,
yeah.
I don't have any explanation for that. It's just kind of weird. Even if it had nothing to do with each other, it was the hotel was haunted and my friend passing away at that same time.
Yeah,
had nothing to do with it. It was still just a weird synchronicity that I'll always remember that day.
Yeah. Yep. And I mean, it could have been your friend too. I mean, as we know, once you're just energy, how do we know how far people can travel? So it could have been, but it also could have just been just two different things happening same time.
Yeah, I never understood the significance of the ice tongs. Kind of weird.
Yeah, that part is. That's why I wonder if that was more of like just a sort of a unintentional thing that happened because of all the energy going on there, maybe. But again, I never claimed to have any answers, so I don't know. But yeah, no, that's amazing. Of course, it's always, sorry for the loss of that friend, but it's an amazing story, amazing experience to have that, that like you said, you'll remember that. So yeah, thank you for sharing everything that you've shared today.
Yeah, man. Like I said, just I'm just a regular guy. I'm just trying to live a spiritual life and trying to understand this whole thing. We have these experiences. I don't know how to explain them. It makes me feel kind of humble, even though I can't explain them and I don't know what it could be. I just feel there's something else out there, more than just this life, more than just these experiences we're having here and the money and the the cars and the house, right, and the girl. There's more to this life than these material things. And I just want people to kind of, I want people to, maybe if they realize this, maybe we'll be good to one another. That there is more to this life than just our mundane things we do every day.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. That would be great. And it's sort of I look at it in a similar way I look at the whole sort of the scope of the size of the universe as we know it. We're in such a small section of it, but we're still there and we're still part of it. And I'd look at the paranormal or supernatural or the existence after we pass in that same way, where this is just one part of whatever we're going to or we have experienced.
Mm-hmm.
And even if we don't remember it all, from when we go from one phase to another, sometimes people do remember things. So, and I think that's a whole other topic, of course. But yeah, no. Thank you again for sharing everything, and looking forward to talking to you on another show at some point. We'll talk about, like I said, having you on a roundtable in the months to come.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, thank you very much for having me on, James, and thank you for letting me share my stories.
Well, thank you for sharing them, and I'll let you go so I can close out the show here. So,
all right, man. Have a good night.
You as well.
Talk to you later.
Yep. Okay. So, that's it. The show for today. And again, I want to thank Matsowl, Matt, for sharing all of his stories and being here, and for his second appearance on the show. So, I'll be back tomorrow to cover paranormal news on the next episode of Salcedo Paranormal. Take care, everyone.